Ashfire Peaks was a land that seemed alive with fire. Black cliffs rose sharply from rivers of molten rock, glowing red in the haze of smoke that never left the sky. The wind carried a constant heat that made skin sting, and the ground itself trembled sometimes, as if warning humans to stay in their place. Dragons had lived here for thousands of years. They were not just beasts, they were rulers, and no human dared to challenge them. Most people in the villages had learned fear, and fear had kept them alive. Kalen was different. He was small, with dark hair that clung to his forehead from sweat, and hands that had grown strong from years of tending the village stables. Most villagers looked down on him. They called him just a boy, someone too weak and unimportant to make any difference. But Kalen had something that could not be measured in strength. He had eyes that saw patterns and a mind that noticed things others ignored. He spent hours watching dragons fly in the distance, studying the way their wings moved, the way their roars echoed across the cliffs. It was dangerous. One wrong step and a falling ember or a sweeping claw could kill him. But Kalen felt a strange connection to the creatures. He could hear rhythms in their roars, subtle vibrations in the air, and it made his chest tighten with both fear and fascination. The village was small, perched on a ledge of ash and stone, barely surviving on the meager crops that grew in cracked soil and the animals that were hardy enough to live in such heat. Kalen worked in the stables, feeding the fire-resistant horses and guarding them from the smaller, aggressive dragons that sometimes swooped close. It was hard, lonely work. Yet Kalen never complained. He had a curiosity the others did not understand. Even in a place ruled by monsters, he believed humans could find a way to survive. Maybe even more than survive. One evening the air changed. The sky darkened faster than usual, and the wind began to howl like a living thing. Kalen felt the first tremor under his feet. From the northern cliffs, a massive cloud of ash and sparks erupted. A firestorm was moving down toward the village. The villagers screamed and ran, but there was no time. The elders shouted that it was the dragon's wrath, that humans could not fight it, that they had to hide or die. But Kalen could not run. He felt something else, something deep inside him. A roar came from above, low and trembling, and it seemed almost different. It was not anger, not hunger, but a call, a vibration that made Kalen's chest thrum. Kalen climbed the nearest ridge, hands scraped and bleeding from sharp rocks. Molten droplets hissed around him, burning grass and stone alike. His heart pounded in his chest, not just from fear but from a strange thrill. He was small, he was weak, but he was human, and humans could find ways that dragons could not imagine. From the ridge he saw it, a dragon unlike any he had seen. Its scales shimmered like liquid bronze, and its wings stretched wider than any building in the village. It hovered above the firestorm, roaring yet not attacking. Kalen froze. Every instinct screamed at him to run. But curiosity and something deeper, something like hope, kept his feet rooted. He studied its eyes, which glowed like molten gold. They were intelligent. Kalen felt a pulse in the air, a rhythm that matched the vibrations he had been feeling since childhood. His mind raced. Could it be communicating? Could he respond? A sudden ember landed near him, igniting the dry grass. Kalen jumped back, but he did not run. He picked up a small rock and threw it, not to hurt but to make a sound in response. The dragon's wings twitched. It tilted its massive head. Kalen's pulse raced faster. This was it, the moment that could be nothing or everything. He took a deep breath and mimicked the low hum he had felt, a vibration in his chest, letting it rise into a sound that shook the air around him. The dragon shifted slightly. It roared, not at him but seemingly in reply. Kalen's heart skipped. He had survived, not by strength, not by hiding but by daring to understand, to reach out. From below, the villagers watched in terror and awe. Some screamed that he would die. Others whispered that perhaps this boy had a chance. Kalen's hands shook, his lips dry, but he stood firm. He had no weapon, no army, only his mind and his courage. The dragon's roar became a series of slower, deliberate sounds. Kalen matched them step by step, feeling the rhythm flow into him. The cliff trembled. The firestorm raged closer. Kalen knew he had only seconds to act. If he failed, the village would burn and he would fall with it. But if he succeeded, perhaps he could do what no human had ever done: communicate with the ancient dragons not as prey but as a peer. A sudden shadow passed over him as the dragon shifted in the sky, its wings casting a massive darkness on the ridge. Kalen looked up, eyes wide, breath caught. He was about to find out if humans could touch the untouchable, or if he was about to be the first human to fall into legend for all the wrong reasons. The dragon lowered its massive head closer. Kalen swallowed his fear. His heart beat like a drum. This was the beginning. and he did not know yet if it would be the end. Kalen's heart raced as the elder WRM's massive head hovered just above him. Its eyes, like molten gold, seemed to see into every corner of his mind. The villagers below could only watch, frozen, their fear palpable. Most had never dared to stand against a dragon in their lives, and now this boy, this stable hand, was standing alone on the ridge, facing what no human had survived before. The wind gusted violently, carrying sparks that hissed across Kalen's skin. He felt the heat pressing down like a living weight, but he did not retreat. Every instinct screamed for him to run, to throw himself into the safety of the village, but he knew instinct alone would not save them. Survival here required thinking, daring, and understanding. He had to communicate. Kalen remembered the patterns he had observed in the dragon's movements over the years. Each beat of their wings, each flick of their tails, followed a rhythm, like music but dangerous, commanding, alive. He raised his hands slowly, letting them vibrate subtly in time with the dragon's low hum. His fingers trembled, sweat stinging his eyes, but he did not flinch. The elder WRM hissed, a sound that shook the ridge beneath Kalen's feet. Rocks tumbled down the cliffs and a wave of heat pushed him backward. He stumbled but caught himself on a jagged stone. The dragon's wings flared wide, shadowing him, and he could feel the gust as if it carried claws made of wind. One swipe could end everything. One wrong move and Kalen would die. He steadied himself and let out a low hum, one he had practiced for months in secret. It was not loud, but it resonated in his chest, matching the vibration he had sensed in the dragon. The elder WRM's head tilted, nostrils flaring, eyes narrowing. It hissed again, but this time there was hesitation. Kalen's pulse thundered. The creature was listening. A sudden ember landed near him, igniting dry grass. Kalen jumped back instinctively, his legs burning with the effort to remain upright. The dragon's roar came, deafening yet strangely measured. Kalen realized he had only one chance. He inhaled, counting the beats of the dragon's wings like a rhythm, and then stepped forward, hands still raised. His voice rose, trembling but steady, harmonizing with the dragon's vibrations. The WRM recoiled, then paused. Its massive claws scraped the ridge, sending dust and sparks into the air. Kalen's stomach churned. His mind raced, he could not fail here. He tried to imagine the dragon not as a monster but as a living mind, a being with thoughts and instincts he could tap into. He remembered the evenings watching the dragons fly, memorizing their patterns, imagining their perspective. This was not fear or domination, it was understanding. The elder WRM lowered its massive jaw, almost sniffing Kalen. Sparks of fire drifted harmlessly around them, yet the heat pressed closer. Kalen's voice shook as he sent another wave of vibrations. For a tense moment, nothing happened. Then the dragon blinked, once, slowly, and exhaled a plume of smoke that coiled in the air like a question. Kalen's heart leapt. It was responding. He mirrored its movements with his hands and voice, carefully, deliberately. Each step had to be precise. One mistake could trigger violence. Sweat dripped from his brow and his muscles ached, but he did not stop. Slowly, the dragon's massive wings shifted, creating a slower, gentler rhythm. Kalen felt the vibration through the ridge, through his chest. He matched it. Step by step, hum by hum, the impossible began to happen. The villagers below gasped, some stepping forward cautiously, others hiding behind rocks. No one spoke. All eyes were fixed on the ridge where a human boy dared to challenge the might of the elder WRM. They had seen dragons in action countless times, but never like this. Never a human standing with such courage, matching the creature's rhythm instead of fleeing. Kalen's mind raced. He had read the dragon's patterns, he had felt the vibrations, but he had no proof that this would work beyond the ridge. He needed to see it. He stepped closer, eyes never leaving the dragon's gaze. The WRM lowered its head further, nostrils flaring, and Kalen realized it was almost gentle now, curious rather than aggressive. His heart pounded, not just with fear, but with the strange thrill of connection, the first real step toward a bond no human had ever had. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from the cliffs above. A smaller dragon, younger and furious, had spotted them. It screeched, wings beating violently, and dived toward Kalen. Instinct screamed to duck, to hide, but he remembered the rhythm. He shifted his hum, quickening slightly, and flung a small stone toward a nearby cliff to distract the young dragon. The plan worked. It veered off, but Kalen's chest pounded so violently he thought he might collapse. The elder WRM's massive head lowered closer and Kalen froze. He could almost feel the dragon's thoughts, its curiosity, its intelligence. He had survived, not through brute force, not by fleeing, but through courage, observation, and daring to reach out. Yet he knew this was only the beginning. The firestorm still approached the village. Dragons still circled, some angry, some curious. Kalen's connection to the Elder WRM might be his only hope to save everyone. Breathless and trembling, Kalen looked down at the village below, its tiny homes dwarfed by the cliffs and rivers of fire. He had made contact, but that was not enough. The real challenge was just beginning. Could a human boy command dragons to save humans? Could courage and intelligence truly overcome beings that had dominated the world for millennia? As the Elder WRM blinked slowly, Kalen felt the vibration in his chest again, a pulse that seemed like a question. Will you dare to lead us? The answer would decide everything, and the boy knew that failure was no longer an option. Kalen's legs shook as he watched the firestorm inch closer to the village. The Elder WRM hovered above him, wings stretching wider than he had ever imagined, the golden eyes fixed on him like molten suns. Kalen's chest ached with the weight of responsibility. If he failed, the village would burn. If he succeeded, humans might prove they could outthink even the oldest, fiercest dragons. The other dragons circled high above, some angry, others curious. Their shadowed forms blotted out the red sky, a living storm of scales and wings. Kalen realized that the Elder WRM's attention was only the first step. If he wanted to save the village, he would need to influence the others, to make them pause, hesitate, and listen. It was an impossible task. Yet humans thrived on impossibility. Kalen raced down the ridge, careful not to slip on the heated stone. He needed something, anything, to protect the villagers. The crops were already in flames, and the animals panicked, trampling each other in the chaos. Kalen's mind worked faster than his feet could carry him. He remembered the molten glass shards the villagers had once used to reflect the harsh sun. Maybe they could reflect light and fire. He shouted instructions to the villagers, his voice cutting through the roar of the dragons and the crackle of flames. Some stared in disbelief, but desperation lit a fire in their hearts. Together, they smashed obsidian and glass into large sheets, bracing them on frames made of metal scraps and sturdy wood. Sparks flew as molten embers bounced off the shields, and Kalen felt a small surge of hope. It was crude, and it might not survive the full fury of the dragons, but it was something. It was a plan. He climbed back to the ridge. The Elder WRM tilted its massive head, watching him. Kalen drew a deep breath, the heat burning his lungs, and sent a low hum into the air, following the rhythm he had learned from months of observation. This time he did not merely mimic, it was a signal, a command hidden in curiosity and courage. The dragon's wings shifted in response, slow, deliberate. Kalen's pulse raced. He was sending a message, a pattern the other dragons could follow. Below, the villagers positioned their reflective shields, praying the dragons did not attack before Kalen could act. Sparks from flying embers glinted off the sheets, creating blinding flashes. Kalen's mind spun. If he could control the Elder WRM, the others might follow its lead. If not, the village would burn. A sudden screech tore through the sky. One of the younger dragons broke from the circle, diving directly toward the village. Kalen's hands trembled, but he did not panic. He adjusted the hum, quickening the pulse in a sequence he hoped the Elder WRM would understand. The massive dragon tilted its wings sharply, sending the young dragon off course with a forceful flap that pushed the smaller beast away. Kalen's heart leapt. It was working. The Elder WRM's golden eyes fixed on him again, and Kalen understood something profound. The dragons were not just following instinct, they were considering him. His courage, his intelligence, his willingness to risk everything, had earned their attention. He was no longer just a boy, he was a force they could not ignore. But time ran out quickly. The firestorm reached the edge of the village, burning everything in its path. Kalen could see children screaming, livestock panicking, homes catching fire. He knew he had only seconds. He stepped onto a higher ridge, hands raised, and let his voice carry in a series of calculated hums and pulses. The Elder WRM circled lower, wings spreading wide, blocking the rain of fire from above. Kalen matched each vibration carefully, and to his astonishment, the other dragons began to slow, hesitating as if questioning the Elder WRM's decision. A moment of silence passed, broken only by the crackling fire and the hum of the dragon's wings. Kalen realized that this hesitation was everything. The dragons were listening to a human. One human. A boy who had nothing but courage and wit, standing against beings that had dominated the world for millennia. Kalen's eyes swept the village. He could see families crouching behind shields, wide-eyed, hoping for a miracle. He felt the weight of every life, Every hope, every possibility. This was more than survival. This was proving that humans could act where others would only hide. That intelligence and courage could match raw power. The elder WRM roared, a sound that shook the ridge, and Kalen responded with the final sequence he had prepared, a rhythm meant not to command blindly but to guide, to inspire attention and obedience through trust. The WRM dipped lower, wings beating in harmony with his pulses. The other dragons followed tentatively, forming a loose circle above the village. Their fire was still dangerous, but their attacks were now measured, restrained. The impossible was happening. Humans had found a way to influence dragons without force. Kalen sank to his knees, exhaustion and fear washing over him, but he did not collapse. He had made the first real connection, the bridge between human and dragon. But he knew the battle was far from over. One misstep, one wrong note, and everything could collapse. The village, the plan, and his life. He looked up at the elder WRM, golden eyes staring back. It hovered above him, massive wings flaring as if waiting for the next signal. Kalen's mind raced. If he could guide this dragon, and if he could extend that influence to the others, he might just save the village. He had taken the first step, but the real challenge, the true turning point, was still ahead. The firestorm continued to rage, the younger dragons grew restless, and Kalen's pulse thumped in his chest. Courage had brought him this far. Now, intelligence and quick thinking would decide the fate of everyone below. He rose to his feet, chest burning, hands raised. He was ready. The impossible was calling, and Kalen would answer. Kalen's chest burned as he watched the dragons hover above the village, their massive wings blocking the molten rain of fire. The elder WRM's golden eyes stayed fixed on him, waiting, judging, as if asking whether this human was worthy of trust. Kalen knew that trust alone would not save the village. He had to act. He had to lead. Below, the villagers scrambled to protect what little they could. Children screamed, livestock panicked, and homes cracked under the heat. Kalen felt the weight of every life pressing down on him. The wind carried ash and sparks, stinging his eyes, but he did not flinch. This was his moment. If he failed, all would be lost. If he succeeded, humans would prove they could rise above the impossible. He climbed to the highest ridge he could find, his legs shaking from exhaustion. His hands were scorched, his clothes singed, but Kalen raised them anyway, arms trembling but steady. He began the harmonic sequence he had practiced. The rhythm that matched the elder WRM's wings, the patterns he had memorized, the vibration that spoke without words. Each hum pulsed through the ridge, through the air, through the dragon's very bones. The elder WRM dipped its head low, closer than Kalen had ever dared to imagine. Sparks from falling embers scattered around them, but Kalen did not move. The dragon's massive wings beat in a slow, deliberate rhythm. Kalen mirrored it with his voice, each hum precise, each vibration carefully controlled. Slowly he felt the elder WRM's massive weight of attention shift. He was no longer just a target. He was a guide. Below, a younger dragon broke formation, screeching, diving toward the village. Kalen's heart slammed against his ribs. He could not let panic undo everything. He flung a stone toward the cliff to distract it, then let out a sharp, resonant hum that cut through the air. The elder WRM reacted instantly, flapping its wings in a sweeping arc that redirected the young dragon harmlessly into the sky. Kalen felt a surge of hope. The impossible was working. But the firestorm was relentless. Flames poured over the village edge and molten rocks rolled like tiny meteors. Kalen did not hesitate. He leapt onto a flat section of rock closer to the elder WRM, hands reaching upward. For the first time he climbed onto the dragon's massive back, holding tight despite the searing heat and the force of its wings. The villagers below gasped. They had never seen a human ride a dragon, and yet here was Kalen, small and unarmed, perched on a creature thought untouchable. His voice carried, harmonics echoing across the cliff, and the elder WRM moved in perfect response. Step by step, flap by flap, Kalen guided the dragon into position, circling above the village, blocking the worst of the falling fire and redirecting molten streams away from homes. Kalen's mind raced. Every movement had to be precise. One misstep could send them both plummeting into the lava below. He adjusted the vibrations, the hums, and even his balance to guide the elder WRM like a living shield. The other dragons hesitated, then slowly began to follow the WRM's lead, circling in a disciplined formation above the village. Sparks of fire fell, but now they were controlled, directed, and less deadly. Below, villagers worked desperately to move livestock and people to safer spots. Some cried. Some whispered prayers. Kalen's heart ached for them, for the fear, for the suffering. He realized that heroism was not about glory, it was about responsibility, about taking the weight of others' lives on your shoulders and daring to act when everything seemed impossible. A massive boulder rolling from the cliffs threatened to crush the village. Kalen shouted a warning. The elder WRM angled its wings sharply, deflecting the boulder harmlessly into a river of molten rock. Another dragon, following its lead, lifted a smaller rock with its claws, dropping it safely away from people. Kalen's pulse thundered. His courage and intelligence were no longer separate from the dragons. They had become a force together. Then came the final test. The youngest, angriest dragon broke formation, diving straight at Kalen on the elder WRM. Time slowed. He adjusted his hum, altering the rhythm he had practiced 100 times, and flung his body forward to shift the elder WRM's balance. The young dragon collided with the WRM's wing, rebounding harmlessly, while Kalen leaned into the movement, using both mind and instinct to stabilize the creature. The elder WRM roared, a sound that shook the ridge and reverberated through Kalen's chest. The other dragons fell into line, their formation complete. Flames slowed. Sparks fell harmlessly around the village. Kalen's chest burned from the effort, his throat raw, his hands blistered, but he had done it. The impossible had been achieved, humans and dragons working together. Kalen slid off the elder WRM's back, landing hard but safely on the ridge. The dragon lowered its head toward him, eyes like molten gold studying him carefully. Kalen met the gaze without flinching. There was no fear now, only mutual recognition. The elder WRM exhaled smoke slowly, almost like a sigh before lifting into the sky. One by one the other dragons followed. The village was safe. Below, the villagers ran forward, crying, cheering, hugging one another. They stared at Kalen in awe, finally seeing him not as a boy, but as a human who had dared to stand against the impossible and lead with courage, wit, and heart. He had saved lives with nothing but determination and intelligence. Kalen sank to his knees, exhaustion overwhelming him, but a fierce pride burned in his chest. The elder WRM circled above once more, golden eyes fixed on him, then took to the sky. Kalen knew the dragons would never forget him, nor would they underestimate humans again. He had proven something fundamental. Humans could rise above fear, above odds, and even above creatures older and stronger than themselves. The village was safe, the dragons had been guided, and Kalen, small, unarmed, and daring, had become a force no one could ignore. Yet even as he breathed, chest heaving, he knew this was only the beginning. Humans had claimed a place among the legends of Ashfire Peaks, but the world was vast and the challenges far from over. Kalen looked up at the sky, golden and red, wings beating far above him. Courage had carried him this far. Intelligence had saved the village. Morality, heart, and daring would guide the next steps. Humans were not just survivors. They were leaders, innovators, and warriors in ways the world had never imagined. And Kalen would prove it again. The firestorm had passed. The sky above Ashfire Peaks was still streaked with smoke, but the red glow had softened to a warm ember light that bathed the village in a fragile calm. Kalen sat on the ridge, legs trembling, hands scorched and blistered, chest still heaving from the effort. The elder WRM circled above one last time before lifting toward the distant cliffs, golden eyes locking on him in a silent acknowledgement. The villagers approached cautiously at first, disbelief in their eyes. Then one by one they began to cheer, cries of relief breaking through the quiet ash. Mothers clutched their children tightly. Fathers embraced their wives. Even the eldest, who had doubted Kalen's courage, stepped forward and laid a hand on his shoulder, voice quivering. You saved us, he whispered. All of us. Kalen shook his head. We saved ourselves, he said softly. The dragons, they listened. I only guided them. We did this together. It was true. The villagers had built the reflective shields, followed his instructions, and survived by working as a unit. But Kalen also knew the truth. No human, no matter how brave, could have faced the elder WRM alone and lived. Intelligence, courage, and heart had combined to create a force that even the oldest, fiercest dragons respected. Humans, at their core, could rise above the impossible. He stood, surveying the village. Homes had burned, some livestock lost, but the people themselves were alive. There was fear still, yes, but it had been replaced by awe, hope, and a deep, simmering pride. Kalen's chest swelled with the knowledge that this moment would not be forgotten. Stories would spread across Ashfire Peaks. A human had stood on the ridge, faced dragons thought untouchable, and guided them not with strength, but with courage and intelligence. The elder WRM's roar echoed faintly from the distance, a sound that had once terrified him, now carrying something else: recognition. Kalen realized it was a call to a new understanding, a reminder that humans and dragons could coexist, not as prey and predator, but as beings capable of mutual respect. He smiled faintly, a mixture of relief and awe, and knew this was only the beginning. Villagers gathered around him, lifting him onto their shoulders, their cheers echoing off the cliffs. Kalen felt a strange warmth spread through him. He had always been just a boy, unseen, unimportant, dismissed. Now he had become a symbol, not just of courage but of human potential. Humans could think, adapt, and rise where others would fail. They could face dragons, storms, and impossible odds, and survive. Kalen walked slowly through the village, touching homes and animals, seeing the damage wrought by fire. His heart ached at the loss, but he also felt pride. Each rebuilt home, each saved life, each small victory was proof that humans were not just fragile creatures. They were resilient, creative, and unstoppable when they refused to surrender. As night fell, Kalen climbed to the highest ridge again, looking out over the jagged cliffs of Ashfire Peaks. Stars began to appear, tiny points of light in the smoky sky. Somewhere in the darkness, the elder WRM and its companions rested, wings folded, watching. Kalen imagined their eyes glinting in the starlight, remembering him. He had proven himself not through dominance, but through understanding, courage, and careful thought. He thought of the villagers, of their hope, their survival, and he felt a surge of determination. This was not the end. Dragons had dominated the land for millennia, and humans had survived because they had learned to adapt. Now Kalen had shown that humans could lead, could inspire, and could shape the future even when faced with beings far stronger than themselves. Days passed and the village slowly began to rebuild. Kalen helped where he could, his hands raw from the climb and the fire, his body aching, but his mind alive with possibility. The villagers looked to him now, not as a boy but as a leader, a symbol, a human who had dared to stand when others would have fled. His courage had changed everything. Kalen often returned to the ridge, studying the skies, watching for the dragons. Sometimes he saw a shadow pass high above and felt a thrill of connection. He knew that the elder WRM had recognized him, not as a threat, not as prey, but as a human capable of understanding, courage, and guidance. That bond, fragile and unspoken, was proof that humans could reach heights even dragons could respect. And Kalen knew, deep in his heart, that this was only the beginning. Humans were creatures of courage, intelligence, and determination. They would face storms, dragons, and challenges beyond imagining, and they would rise again and again. He had started small, with nothing but observation and courage. Yet the legend of a human commanding the ancient dragons had begun. He looked down at the village one last time as night fully fell, stars reflected in the rivers of lava below. Families slept in rebuilt homes, children safe, animals unharmed. Kalen took a deep breath, feeling the warmth of survival, hope, and triumph. The impossible had been overcome. Humans, even the smallest, weakest, or overlooked, could rise to greatness through courage, intelligence, and heart. Kalen smiled, knowing that long after he was gone, the story of the boy who commanded dragons would be told across Ashfire Peaks. And perhaps, one day, other humans would rise as he had, daring to stand against impossible odds, proving that humanity's courage could never be measured in strength alone. The stars blinked overhead. The wind carried a faint echo of dragon wings. And Kalen, small but unbroken, knew that humans were no longer merely survivors, they were legends in the making.